It's cold, y'all. It's cold. But does it surprise you? Does it surprise you that we are in that season where the ground gets hard, the wind gets cold, and causes the environment to constrict and be sometimes unforgiving? But that is the foundation that we all stand upon, right? Is it not? Because you can't build, you can't grow something that is not stable. Eventually, it's going to give way. It's going to cause you to reassess and look around, because you do understand we are what we attract, because that beacon is your spirit. It doesn't matter how it doesn't matter how it is portrayed. What does your spirit tell you? What do you actually believe that inkling you feel? That inkling, and you have tried to navigate to find the truth. And then some of y'all may have turned around and gotten to a position where you say, you know what? It's frustrating because it's challenging. Did you ever ponder for a second that maybe, just maybe, what was being revealed was really true, looking right back at you? You ever thought about that? Some of y'all walk around with a mindset that everything that you touch, instead of turning gold, it is nothing but rust. That was a liar. You know why it's got to fall apart? So the truth can be seen. Because see, real recognizes real, and that will constantly be the message. That will be, if you add one and one and it comes up to be three, but the equation is only two, why will you not accept it? Who am I talking to? But I'm putting this video out for a couple reasons, y'all. Because as of late, I've been gravitating through a certain mindset that my spirit, who I really am, because what you see is what you get. This ain't no theatrics. This is nothing but love being put out, because energy out is energy return. So why can it not be love? Because where love exists, there is growth, there is validation, there is you. So why accept anything less? I mean, I understand. The status quo doesn't want you to believe you are blessed. That's why there is always a table that is endless, filled with with chairs for you to rest those feet, called misery, because they want you to give up. They don't want you to use that beautiful mind. You only use 6%. Why won't you claim that? Because the truth is, the other 94% is divinely given. Hmm? So, with me taking this time, no, this ain't the 2017 message. That's coming tomorrow. This coming tomorrow. But this morning when I woke up and gave thanks for that sacred breath that is inside this vessel, because without that breath, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's found in your pockets, y'all. It doesn't matter where you lay your head. It doesn't matter whose elbows you are rubbing at this time. It matters not. It's about you. See that? That went off? That's for somebody. That's your light bulb moment. Doesn't matter because the truth of the matter is you've been feeling this for a long time. Long time. And that's probably most like let's speak truth. Let's speak truth, right? Because you can't get nowhere with deflection, but right back where you began. Maybe that is the true reason why you feel disconnected from yourself. And I understand you might be beyond defense mode because you may have gone through situations where you say, you ain't gonna get me, you're not gonna catch me that way, and I'm gonna sleep with one eye open, but you're tired. No. You ain't gotta worry about what's sleeping with one eye open. Just open up your heart. Open it. Because when you open your heart, guess what's gonna happen? You'll notice your feet are grounded. Now, to truly open up your heart, that means you've got to tap into that discernment. Hmm. But see, how can you tap into something that is divinely given if you refuse not to claim you? Hmm? Maybe that's the reason why we live in an environment where it's more PC and accepted for you to claim what you are not. We are so easy as a society to take on airs and personas of the things we are not just to facilitate the insecurity that is within us. The question should be asked why. For those who've been on this channel and been on this journey with me, I got to throw this out there. For those who may not know, I got another channel too. It's called Journey of a Man. All caps, Journey of a Man. And that is going to be, you're going to see Gerald transform physically because I'm going to put the applications of the mind, body, and spirit to make the whole person, the person that I know I am. Who you are destined to be, guess what you got to do? First, you got to fall back in love with the real you. You must make an unconditional covenant with yourself to see it through. That means you're going to have the fortitude. The question should be asked, why not? Why not? And there's a reason why I state this. Because the other day I put a video out and I kind of alluded to it. It was called Story Time and a Question. And the whole reason, excuse me, the whole reason for that video is I had a question within myself in regards to heritage. Yeah, your history, Now, as you already know, we are all connected. Good, not so good, and those who choose to deflect. That is the commonality that we all share. We all have a heart, a set of lungs, a powerful mind, and a vessel, your temple, your body. That is the commonality for all mankind. The human race, you're a part of it, right? Even though there's been a lot of disappointment, a lot of non-accountability, and a lot of it is perpetuated by fear. Let's call a spade a spade. That's good old fear. Finally, everything's reality. But how can you understand the reality if you do not have all the facts? What made me think about it the other day, and that was the reason why I put that video out, because, see, I know I'm not the only one. And let me throw this disclaimer out to the millennials. Gerald got love for you. You know that, right? You got to live your life. But to truly be the person you're destined to be, you must own who you are. That means that person in the mirror. You must put value in that person through investment, because as long as you live on this earthly realm, you are not entitled. You must put in everything you wish to possess. That's why steel sharpens steel. But if you are not afraid to put your foot down, to go within inside yourself, that person with not only the capabilities unlike any other, you'll be able to validate those spiritual gifts that God gave you the moment you took your first breath. You think that's by chance you have those hobbies? The question I should ask you is, why do you feel ashamed not to claim them? I know there's somebody right now, well, Gerald, I got a thing for crocheting. Well, does it bring joy? Why are you ashamed of it? Why? Because your peer group will not accept you for your uniqueness? Well, guess what? I hate to tell you, they don't deserve to hear you breathe, and that's not the environment you should have been in to begin with. So the commonality should be asked, what is the link that joins you with that environment? And when you decide to actually be honest with yourself, to identify, you'll also come to understand that you deserve much more. Because, see, love does not hurt. Your life is not a regret. And guess what? Your last name is not victim. Your middle name is not martyr. Your first name is not doormat. So why are you lying down when it comes to you claiming your life? Why? Because you feel alienated? Because they don't get you? Well, newsflash, not everybody's going to have the ability to learn or witness your story. See, let me make this clear to you, because I know some of y'all went through some hardship, all to try to put a smile on someone's face on the 25th day of December. We know that is Christmas. And you tried to move mountains just for that one day, just to, so you thought, but only got left holding the bag. Now, this is not to demarginalize your emotional state, but I want you to understand it was meant for you to see how things played out. It had to be that way. And I understand that does not bring comfort in your anguish. Well, let me throw this on top of that anguish. This is only letting you know that there's something better waiting the moment you decide to claim you back. Who am I talking to? Do I have your attention? Because I got your spirit. That's why your heart is fluttering. That's why your throat is kind of closing up right now. That's right. Reflect what's going on, but you know I'm telling the truth. Because that little boy and little girl that lives in you, that is the real you. Now, I ain't forgot about you. You thought I was going to skip? Millennials. Newsflash. Yes, when it comes to intellect, you are ahead of the curve. But on the backside, you are actually deficient. And I know some like, well, how is that? I can write a program and I can match wits with some of my elders. But the problem of that is this: you do not know who you are. Not 35 years old of age. News flash. Let me save you a whole lot of unnecessary hardship. See, the mindset that you will have at 35 will not reflect the mindset and the viewpoint that you have at 28. The mindset and viewpoint that you have at 28 will not reflect the mindset and position you have at 24. The viewpoint and mindset you have at 24 should not match the mentality of when you were 15. So, number one, why are you on a marathon through your life? Why are you running? What are you running for? What are you running to if that is not you? Because until you get to know that person, a lot of setbacks, there'll be a whole lot of distractions, and unfortunately, there'll be a whole lot of people knowing the uniqueness that you possess, and in silence, making a conscious decision to exploit it. Why should they do the work when they got you? Because they tell you what you want to hear. But I know that sounds a little narcissistic, don't it? Hmm. It sounds a little sociopathic too. Oh, they're just impulsive. No, that's what schizophrenics do. But before they can become schizophrenics, they all start off as bipolar. That's why they got control issues. Shame the devil, tell the truth. So if you're feeling a certain kind of way, turn within yourself. Now, for those who have seen the age of 35, and some that have surpassed that in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and if that's the case, you know the answer. Why are you in your 60s and you still feel lost? You can get them, but they don't stick around. That you touch falls apart. Does it surprise you? The storyline stays the same, but the timeline does not. Now here is a reprieve on why. And this is my opinion. This is not uh, singling anybody out. This is just a viewpoint that I feel. And I think this is the reason why I'm putting this out now. I remember when I was a little boy, I would always see a commercial ran. It was always on the weekends, and it never failed. It was always during when Soul Train was playing, and or there was a uh, ethnic influenced show or audience, right? And you would always see it in the morning, right before Soul Train came on, and it was definitely you would see a bunch of blacks, melanated people, in the back of they're on the back of this cart, and you see over their shoulder, you don't see their face really, and you just hear the hoofs of the mule pushing the cart, and you're hearing the wheel turn, you know, and then as the camera pans over to see the front of the expression on these people's faces, you would hear the narrator say, "A mind is a terrible thing to waste." And this used to be the slogan for the United Negro College Front. It was also one of the pretty much banners always seen with the NAACP as well. And I never forgot that because as soon as they put that out, you always would see an Afro Sheen commercial or something product derived for that, for our culture, pushing whatever they pushing. And then there goes Soul Train. That was very impactful for me. It was. I never forgot that. And didn't understand till while in my now in my 40s the value of the imagery and the metaphors that it represented. Now, I'm saying this to set this up. In 2016, I'll be so glad to say goodbye to 2016. We just got less than what, 48 hours, and we can put this behind you. But there's going to be a whole lot of wisdom that you're going to be able to pull from this year. Because look at where you are, take stock of where you are right now. Now, with that, think back to where you were in January. Now, you got those two lines, right? Now, look at the highs and the lows and the people that were connected to it, the things that you were able to champion, as well as the things that made your reality. How about some of those challenges? Some of y'all are still wrestling with these challenges. The question should be why? Why is it? Hmm? Why? Because I know I did that because somebody was like, what is that he got on his shirt? I just gave it to you. It means more than you think. But I believe that for you to have the life that you envision, you got to unlock the person you are first. You got to get comfortable in that skin. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that do this that don't have a clue. They're quick to say, well, I'll do this. And if it was me, I'd do that. But if you stick around long enough and look at their actions, you'll come to understand they're still doing what they've been doing for the last 5 years. But what's unfortunate is You've been right there too. This isn't shade, this is love. And this is also why I'm putting this video out. This is for somebody. So for those who've been on social media, I ain't got to tell you, you know what's trending. And, at the end of the day, we have to be accountable for what we do. Just like you are accountable for the moment you open your eyes and put your feet on the ground and start your day, as well as when you finally rest your head and close them. That whole circumference of time, that's yours because it's your life. It's a it's a reflection of what you did with your time. Now, before I lose track of my point, I'm going to throw this out here. Just a theory. Just a theory. Especially for those that are in older than 35. Look at your lineage, right? You got to overview your lineage, your family tree, right? Why is it when you look at your family tree, if you lucky, you can go back 4 generations. And then everything else is hearsay. Why is that? Why is that? Why is your family lineage not looked at as sacred truth? Because you do understand that you are a extension or living example of your parents' strengths and weaknesses. You do know that, right? You realize that? You are the manifestation in physical and spiritual form of what they could or could not do. So, in other words, does it not make sense or has it not registered why your mindset is the way it is? Why you got that temperament or why you got that fear? What I'm describing, y'all, is the definition of a generational curse. But here's the curse. The curse is not somebody putting roots on you like, I'm not dispelling the powers found in the spiritual realm. I'm not. Because I do know that demons exist. Mhm. Just as well as I know that the Jezebel spirit is very, very prevalent. Because the Jezebel spirit does not want anything to do with the cultivation of a healthy family. She's the main reason why you can't talk. She's also the main reason why he decided to cheat. Who am I talking to? She's the main reason why she doesn't know what loyalty is. And she's constantly with a nomadic mindset. Oh, I can't stay in one place over a period of time. I feel stuck. When a person says they feel stuck, they're basically saying they don't want to invest in that, even when it comes to themselves. That's why they're they have a plethora of excuses and they don't like to talk about themselves. Why? Because if they start talking about themselves, they'll pull the mask off indirectly and you'll see who you're dealing with. But that's another subject. The main point I'm trying to make is this. Why is it that those that are from ethnic backgrounds have a problem knowing their history? It used to be looked at in family structures. You had the matriarch or the patriarch. That was your great grandma, who was the roots, or the grandfather. They were the truth sayers of your family tree because they lived it. So, if anything, they would always have a protective position about the things you do not know and would step in to protect you, even from yourself. Who am I talking to? See, that's where you're deficient, millennials, because you ain't lived long enough. You can't speak on a story when you don't know yours yet. This ain't shade. This is awareness. So let's throw this out here, because I know there's gonna be somebody that has a viewpoint and they want to turn around and they want to defend it. And I'm only gonna say this to them because I feel your energy. Only person you have to defend that to is the person looking in the mirror, because that person you can't lie to. Now, it's a fact that creation came from Africa. Can't dispute that. So we can safely say that as big as Africa is, as many dynasties that Africa had, you're gonna sit up here and tell me that of all those dominions that were there, because I really believe, and I'm doing research too, that not only is the Earth much older than scientists wish to admit, but what we're doing now is we're on the verge of being exposed to refutable proof that there's been a deliberate dumbing down of the populace. I ain't gotta tell you that. Just look at health standards nowadays. Why is it that 2016 you have third world countries? Why is that? But they have resources that the world needs. Why is that? Why? You got to wonder about that, because somebody knows the importance of those resources and they're exploiting it. Newsflash, they look just like you too. You can't turn around and say, oh, well, it's that. You do understand that for those who are of melanated descent, you don't think that there were deals done amongst those dominions to get people out of the way so that their will could be done? Now, if you acknowledge that, you'll acknowledge this. One thing we can understand: when the heart grows fond, it takes almost a mountain to prevent you from going after it. So who's to say that Mother Africa, there was somebody that did not agree with the policies or the direction of how things were ran? Think they're gonna stick around? I think not. What if it was a situation where, because a lot of those a lot of those countries still to this day do arranged marriages. So what if there was a scenario where there was an arranged marriage going on done by your elders that you're going to marry that person there, and you just wasn't feeling that. What the result was, you're going to do that because it's going to bring the two families together, which will make it stronger, which really was nothing but agenda on both parts. Or you bring dishonor to the family and they kill you. You think nobody wouldn't have grabbed a canoe and tried to beat feet up out of there for self-preservation? What about for shame? Think people didn't jump on boats and try to get up out of there because they knew that if they didn't, they might not see the morning sun? Something to think about. But here's the irony of it all right here. And I don't understand why people don't speak on this. If you've ever had a conversation with a person that is of African descent, that that I'm talking was born there and by way of migration to the United States, you'll notice right off the bat their mindset is much different from yours. They have a certain awareness as well as a certain seriousness about themselves too, as well as they know how to address their audience in a certain manner. Now, I'm taking a long way around this because it's not easy for me to speak truth, but it's the truth. Well, it's my truth because that's what I've seen countless times. Most people that are born in Africa have been raised to look at those who claim African American descent less than. They are offended. And they have no problem telling you that. But some will just be silent, but you see it in their disdain. Oh, yeah. And you will also see that when it comes to likeness, they have a community amongst themselves before they will have with you. And it's about how they relate. This ain't shade, that's how they were reared. Now, there's a reason why I'm saying that. Because there's a movement going on uh, through social media that has been bubbling. A lot of us, a lot of us, and I include myself, because I too had to question. There's a lot of Black Americans that want nothing more than to know their heritage. Because the truth of the matter is, if you were born in the United States and you less than 100 years old, you have Native American blood in your system. That justifies your ears, your cheekbones, your wide nose. It doesn't matter the complexion. Look at the skeletal structure. Now, I know some people will be saying, Joe, how are you going to say that you light skinned? Number one, I didn't pick this color. I didn't, I didn't pick the hue of my skin. No. All I know is from what I've been told, somewhere down the lineage, there had to be someone of less melanation in their system for my line of history to be. What I could not understand was this, or could not accept was this. See, I have a and gone for a while, but my great grandmother was a full blood Blackfoot Indian. And as I put out in my last video, I remember when I was 5, and I remember brushing her long, curly, straight, silver hair, which went down to her butt. I remember that. And I also took note that the family on my mom's side, at a certain age, their hair turned white. I don't understand that. I'm like, why? I would like, as I grew up, you know, a line of reference, I would think about the Uncle Ben's package, because they had to have the butler dude on the brand, just which I thought was kind of funny because you've got rice named Uncle Ben's, and the guy looks like a butler, but you got Aunt Jemima that looked like somebody that you would see in the kitchen, the housekeeper, you know, what we would know as a BBW today, because she was full figured and the epitome of a woman with her full lips and melanated complexion. Now, I'm saying that for a reason, because I know through my development, the first time that I identified what racism was with people that looked just like me. Oh yeah, it used to be a underlining tone that was talked about, but kept away from the kids, that if you go down south and you don't look like them, you're going to have a rough time unlike no other. Didn't matter if you were family or foe. You didn't look like me, so I can't support you. But you know what? That was something I dealt with through my rearing. Oh man, couldn't understand that. Couldn't understand that. But you know what? I made a promise to myself that one day I would find the truth. I would seek it out. And so I think maybe now in my 40s, I'm starting to understand that be proud of what you look like, because that is of your Native American bloodline. But here's the kicker about that, y'all. Because you cannot negate this one fact. Creativity started in Africa. So we can easily assume or say that Native Americans who had been here for thousands of years were the what we know as indigenous. They were homegrown. This was their land. But let's go back. Let's go back a little bit. Now, with all this malarkey about, I think it was it last year, the topic of discussion was, Gerald, well, the earth is flat. The earth is flat. That's why when you look at the camera, it looks straight, not thinking about the lens of the camera. But I, just like you, remember, because see, social sciences, histories anything science related was my strong suit. And I remember looking at geography of maps that were done hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And one thing was true that I knew without having to look for. I knew that there was a man or a woman of melanated descent that surveyed that. You're gonna sit up here and say, oh well, as big as that continent is, everybody stayed there, nobody left. Even though like today, you got people born in this area, go to that school, get that job, and they take that cemetery because they're afraid to go out and discover what the world's all about. There are people that they'll get on a boat quick, but they won't get on a plane to go on the other side. I've been all over the world, y'all. Been very blessed to do that. And with that blessing, I noticed something. Not to negate from my current thought, but I've got to put that to the side. By way of my military service time, there was a time that I literally lived out of a bag. That's all I did. I deployed. Wherever the mission was, I was there. But the one thing that I noticed, no matter wherever those boots landed, I knew this to be true. We used to joke about this. We would say, as long as Tyrone can tie his boots, there'll be a baby left behind. And I didn't understand why we had that mindset, but it was very evident wherever the military presence was, there was always a child left behind. And you would see it through the genetics. But it didn't stop there because through my travels, I had gotten so keen that I could look at somebody and I could see, oh no, you got some black in you. You got some Nubian in you. You see it in their genetics. We can turn around and blame it on environment. That's one part of it. That's just an aspect of it. So I kind of understand why the saying that was very evident in the segregation era, really segregation never stopped because as long as you have a jaded viewpoint, you're segregating yourself. That's from someone. But wherever I went, didn't matter if I was in Asia, it didn't matter if I was in the Middle East, it didn't matter if I was in Europe, it didn't matter. I kept seeing the same example of people. We didn't have the same tongue, but you just could look at someone and say, wait a minute, hold on. This person, this is a person of color. But if you are reared in a certain mindset, a certain environment, their opinion and their understanding may not be the same, but it is the same because you're seeing the evidence. Why do you think, y'all, when you look at people from Europe or I don't care where, you pick the place on the globe, pick the place yourself, and you see a female and her genetics reminds you of a person of melanated descent. You think that's just by chance? No. because the common denominator is everything, the source was Africa. So let's go back to good old USA. Okay. If you're under 100 years old, you got a Native American blood in your DNA. Now, mind you, the U.S. government did not chronicleize like the civil, like the census does. There's either you were non-melanated, which is no such thing because everybody has genetics of a black person in them, even though they don't want to admit it. Come on now, think about it. If God said that Jesus was of dark complexion, bronze, hair like wool, eyes of fire. So that means the eyes were probably 9 times out of 10 very piercing, but they were probably 9 times out of 10 hazel. So if the scriptures says that he made us in his image, why do you not acknowledge that? I'll tell you why. Because those people of that had resources that commissioned painters, and I learned this in humanities. Matter of fact, I think it was humanities 101. You you were taught that when you look at a painting has messages that are sent non-verbally. That's why, for example, when you looked at the images of Napoleon, they always showed him in tall stature. But genetically, Napoleon was a very short man, less than 5 feet, like 5'1". So, but the images showed him of a man that was of 6 feet and tall. That was the nonverbal. Hold up, y'all. Hello? I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming. Sorry about that. All right. I really appreciate your patience. Now, so when it came to paintings and sculptures, whoever was commissioned to do that work wanted to get paid. They wanted the approval of the person that was financing that work. So, guess what? They wanted to ensure the commission was done. Didn't mean that it had to be truthful. That's why when artwork was done and was given as gift, it always made the person that commissioned it to look larger than life. Now, unless you have been coming out of a cave, most people are aware that the image of Jesus Christ that you see in your churches and places, that's not the true image. It's not. Because if it was, then it would match the words in the Bible. But the ironic part is this, and we'll go here, because that's another discussion. Look up, just go to your local search engine and look up the true image of the Virgin Mary, or the image of the Virgin Mary found in the Vatican, and you will see that that image is of a person of Nubian Nubian descent. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is not shade. This is fact. So you got to wonder, why would they hide this? Same reason why they don't want you to know your history, because they've laughed. They've said this so many times in movies and cartoons. Knowledge is power. And the things that you don't know, guess what? They get to exploit. So let's go back to the original point about Native Americans. Okay? When you look up the image of a Native American, like I'm talking some old black and white pictures, this is one thing you can't ignore. They look like people of color. When you look at their hair, it looks like a black person, a person of melanin. And here's the funny thing, we've been so programmed in our society, we use terms that don't exist. What does a white person look like? Because last time I checked, I've never seen a person with that complexion. Even the people of Sudan, with their beautiful carbonated skin. No, there's no such thing as people that look like lumps, like coal. Just like I've never seen a white person. I've not seen a person look like this. That's white. Even if you even if you turn around and put a person of that is uh, considered albino, even their skin, their pigment is not of this. But they'll throw something out there, society will throw that out there because they know that you'll digest it and you'll run with it. That's why there's so much allegory out there today. Now, does that make so if you throw that out there, does that kind of make you wonder, well, why that some people would choose to not give you what you need to know? You know why? Because if you had access for the things that you really needed to know, your life would be totally different. So let's look at that from a social and economic point of view. You wouldn't make half the choices that you've already made if you knew what you needed to know. Now, granted, not everybody. is going to be wealthy. Not everybody is going to be impoverished, but a select few. No, the greatest wealth you'll ever have is inside you. I ain't got to tell you that. Look at the people that have. They're some of the most miserable people in on the face of this earth. And if they could from it to go back to the age of innocence, that the age of innocence is the real you. So with that being said, this also makes sense why for some of y'all that have been uh, part of this channel, the family, you're my family, you'll kind of understand why sometimes you will hear me in my videos say, do you know who you are? I would throw that out there. And mind you, normally after I put a video out, I'll look at it maybe a day or two or whenever I can after the fact because nothing is pre-rehearsed or written. This comes from my heart because I am a living vessel. I am a spiritual man. Yeah, I mean, come on now. You actually think about it. You realize how much time it would take for somebody to sit down and write down everything they got to say, and then nah, it will come off ingenuous. Nah, what you see is what you get. If I was to see you in the street, guess what? You're gonna meet the same guy. What only difference is you might be taken back a little bit because the camera does not scale my size because I'm almost well, you can say I'm 6'3", I'm 240 pounds. Yeah. Well see, it looks like I'm like buck 70. I'm small. No, I'm pretty big guy. I'm pretty solid. Which goes on to the journey of the man site because you'll be able to see me get back to investing in my temple. Yeah. hmm You get the. I'm gonna be in that kitchen. I'm gonna be making recipes, and I'm gonna be tapping into that holistical side of herbs and things that are good for the body. I'm gonna be doing all that as well as when I'm out and about. If there's something that I wanna bring to you, maybe something you might want to consider and try something new. Step out of your comfort zone because the moment that you decide to step out your comfort zone, that brings you one step closer to your identity, who you are. Come on now. That's why when you took your first breath, it secured the legacy of your story and how that story was going to be conveyed. Why? Because you are the architect of it. Now, the grand architect, as you already know, is God. Because if he didn't create you, there would be no story. So you've got to give honor where honor is just due. Now, so let's go back to the Native Americans, right? You will come to understand this. You'll come to understand that, or just question. Maybe that's the problem the African American community has is the fact that they don't know their history. We just got a canned explanation, and there's a whole lot of variables in between from origin to present date. Maybe that's the reason why we can't sit down at the table and build anything together. That's why maybe that's the reason why you hear people say, well, every brother ain't your brother. Well, we already know that because it was written about Cain and Abel, right? So why we gotta go there? That's why it's very important that you Allow yourself to grow within and tap into that spiritual discernment. That's what it's for. That's your compass. That's what's needed to navigate through your life. You're not supposed to be going through life like a floaty in the water, just going with the current. And you wonder why you get caught and snagged up in something that ain't got nothing to do with you. You know? You ever wonder about that? It's because God's got something better for you. That's why. Now let's go back. So it made me think. I said, well, there's something that don't add up. If I know that my great grandmother was a full blooded Blackfoot Indian, and I know that the Apache, I'm not the Apache, the Cherokee, they both amongst, and I think there was like three other tribes, uh, had influence on the northeast coast of the United States. Well, what was going on that northeast part of the United States that was heavily done? It was slavery. Slavery, y'all. Now, yeah, you got historians that use a reference of the transatlantic slave trade, but to really put that into consideration, because we already know that Christopher Columbus, when he got commissioned to discover what was already claimed, his initial uh, his initial goal was to make it to Asia, and his navigator messed up, and they came by way of the uh, the Virgin Islands, and then made it to the United States, to America, because America wasn't the United States then. So everywhere he went, there were people of melanated complexion, stating fact. But let's go with this aspect. For those that know that the earth continues to move, right? Because it's on its axis, right? Well, who's to say that the Platonic plates and the continental shelves did not have a variable in how man explored, by choice or not? Because when you look at the map from a viewpoint and lay it down, it looks like a big puzzle that could be all together. If you look at the continents, you see that at one time they all was one landmass. So, I know you have people that took credit for stuff they didn't, but explain this. Native Americans, and we know that they were the true people on the North American continent. Well, let's talk about those Platonic plates and the continental shelf. Who's to say that the Virgin Islands was closer to Florida and South America was together as well, and that was all connected. Now, it's no secret that people use the Bering Straits, the Asiatic man as we know it, to come from Europe by way of Bering Straits into Canada. So who's to say that they didn't go south? Who's to say that they didn't, even uh, from the continent of Africa, just kept on going. And then wherever they stopped, they regrouped. And one person may have been like, you know what, I'm cool, right? Um, I know y'all want to keep pushing out, but I think I'm gonna just stay here. You gonna tell me that conversation didn't happen? You gonna tell me that spending weeks, months at a time crossing the ocean, that there was not one person that said, you know what, I ain't getting back on that boat. Come on, think about it. But let me bring this home. So the Native Americans are the indigenous people, right? Well, explain this to me then. Well, why is it that as a collective, they look like the same of those in South America, which ain't nothing but another example of 5 shades of brown? They got them wide nose, high cheekbones, that's that beautiful long hair. And you know that long hair is curly, and it's curly because of the tropics, the heat. So guess what? It curled because you're living off the land. That's the main reason why today, Queen, what are you doing? You're gravitating to those Dominicans, right? Gravitating to getting that Brazilian hair, right? Would you still be buying that if you knew that was part of your lineage? Oh, that ain't nothing but Shaquita. Shaquita, that's your great, 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 great ancestor. Yeah, that's family. So that's why when we had the Olympics and they did their program, they did their theme, you saw the props that they gave to the melanated culture. That's why you saw in the Olympics in the opening ceremony, out of the 240 countries that participated, majority of there were of melanated complexion. Come on, you didn't see that? Go on YouTube, you'll see it. Because I believe it goes back to what my great grandmother said. Yeah, you know, Blackfoot. She told me when I was 5 years old, because I was like, I'm a black person. No, I remember what I put on the last video. The song playing was James Brown, I'm Black and I'm Proud. And I remember my great grandmother said, you're not black, you're brown. There are five. And I didn't understand it. She was telling me there were 5 shades of brown. So when you look at the color scheme, you start at the darkest complexion and go down. You know those people that don't claim they're, yeah, they're in there because if you throw the albino albino pigment, it's on the other side because they're darker than the albino. So that tells you that there's melanin in them. And I know you got some people say, well, you know what, Gerald, that's cool, but what I'm talking about, that don't count for those people that were from the Caucasus Mountains, guess what? Let's go back to what we said earlier. The original man came from Africa, right? So let me do this one for you. If you can be brown like beautiful coffee, but if I stick you in an environment where the sunlight is very dense, kind of like what's going on with these chemtrails and this cloud cover, and it's cold, therefore that means your skin doesn't get the nourishment from the sunlight because that's vitamin D. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to get light skin. You're going to turn several shades lighter than your healthy pigment. That's normal genetics. You know I'm telling the truth. Some of y'all know that redneck. You know that redneck Miss Jenkins. She built like a sister, ain't she? Because she's got that in her. They don't want to claim that. Same with our history. Because everything comes full circle. And that's what's going on right now. Because they know that as long as you don't know your history, you won't know you. As long as you don't protect your family story, they'll be able to run shot on you. But you can't protect your family story if you don't love yourself. So how much time are you going to let go by before you decide to, hey, you know what? I need to learn. You'd be surprised and see the greatness and the ingenuity of people in your family tree. Now, let's talk about this. Because I know there's still people to this day that are pissed off about the result of the election. Okay? Now, let me ask you this. You know how that saying goes? If it look like, sound like, act like it is. Now, you might not realize it now, but you you know if it went the other way, that would have set us back 25 years. You do understand that, right? Because the person that does not negate or make excuses for our current or the oncoming. Because right now you see this, everybody wiping their eyes and like, oh man, I wish listen here. Do the math. Do the math and pros and cons. And you'll see that our beloved president didn't do nothing for us. Because if that was the case, why has racism been on the tongues of so many people, some that look just like you? It's never been that way. It wasn't like that 8 years before, and it was terrible then. Why? Why now? Because it was so you could be distracted of what's really going on. Sure, if you fit a certain minority group. Mm, oh yeah, because unless you were LGBT or you were pushing the Black Lives Matter agenda, you were straight. But if you were a typical Joe that bust your ass every day, respected yourself, and refused to be labeled, oh no. You get to be disfranchised. And the question is why? Because they were afraid of you. And they were going to use them to put you in line. That's why there's so much emasculated men rolling around. Well, another part of that is because the estrogen levels in food, especially that milk you drink. I love milk like the next person. But then I started to think, wait a minute, why is it within the last 5 years you see more commercials? Do you have low testosterone? Do you not have enough energy? Do you have a obese factor going on? Try this miracle snake oil. Guess what? They perpetuated the problem because they know this. Cures don't make money. They know that. So anything I can do to get you sick, then you won't be as liable to hold on to that hard-earned dollar that you got. You'll be cashing out. They know that too. But yet, our public education system is deplorable. Our connections of our family are fragmented to the point that you can't even look each other in the eye and tell the other person how much they mean. But you got something to say when they're gone, huh? Such a shame, isn't it? So let's go back. We can't refute the fact that civilization started in that sacred land. But how ironic that I might look like you, but you don't want to have nothing to do with me because the fact that I was not reared there. Why is that? Why is that? Something to think about, y'all. That's for somebody. This is for somebody right here. Wear it well. So I started to think about it. I was like, well, maybe that's the reason why people, especially in the black community, are so lost. Because the truth of the matter is, you don't know your story. You don't know your story or see the value of your story because you don't know you. Now, our truth and our story is not going to always be positive because trust and believe there are people that look just like you and I that don't give a damn about you or I because they too busy valuing status quo of that dollar. But that dollar will never give you peace of mind. I ain't gonna tell you that. Just look at the boob tube. That's all they do. They glorify. They worship man, and then they wonder when they downward spiral because you don't place God first. How can you not? But see, I understand that. This ain't shade because how can you understand your purpose if you don't know what your direction is all about? And you can't understand your direction until you go within the person looking in the mirror, looking back. So guess what? All the choices that you make, because that's free will, they're not in the best interest of you. That's going to cause you to feel exploited. It's going to make you feel like a slave. Because the first slavery wasn't bound by chains, it was bound by mind. And that's why it still goes on to this day. But you will never get satisfaction blaming him. But you will find freedom when you look at you. I'm just saying. So the real question should be asked, you think that the census didn't know this when they started calculating this? Oh, they knew it when it was time to vote now, didn't they? Why is it that when you look at old historic statues, they have the same thing looking back? Wide nose, cheekbones, full lips. That's not European. That's not European. But you'll come to understand even that European that claims to be European, that's kin. Mhm. And if you wasn't so blessed, why do you think they imitate everything you do and try to make it new? You can't pass off an original because you put a spin on it. That's why they did this. Well, you know, imitation is flattery. That's an excuse not to grow. But I'm gonna cut this short. Well, I've talked long enough. But here's something you might want to think about, Queen. Think about maybe the burdens that you went through. You know, all that pain because you was messing with them fools that would never see your worth. You know, those people that use your body for a pinball machine or a bowling ball. Yeah, them people. Don't worry about them because God got something better for you the moment that you decide to claim your life back. Now, here's a theory you might want to think about because since some of y'all are so business savvy, the business you need to worry about is yours. But just think of it this way. Would it make sense? Now we're talking cause and effect, that the beauty industry as we know it is what? It is dominated by the Asian community, right? Can't dispute that. The Asian community has that on lock. How is it that they have it on lock, but you never see their images on a box? Hmm? What is it that they know that you don't? Because you spend $1 trillion a year on your hair. But here's the funny thing: if you knew that that hair was of melanated descent, you might just have the courage to take a step back and ponder this. What did they do to grow it? See, they know that, and this is not shade, this is business. You'll never see Asian descended hair for sale. And you will never see someone of Asian descent wearing weave. You won't. Now, if you consider those that are westernized, yeah, they don't care because they're too busy trying to emulate what the status quo of beauty is, Marsha Brady. But secretly, Marsha Brady wants to be like Pamela. That's why when you look at the media now, they are all about what? Gotta get that buns right. Everything comes full circle, Queen. But here's the funny thing. This is what you don't realize. They keep putting those images out to play on your insecurities. You already know that, right? You already know that. I know you knew that. But they also know that as long as you do not acknowledge that and able to tap into what makes you unique, they're praying that you don't because the moment that you do, guess what? The beauty business would fold. It would fold the next day. Then realize, did you? And maybe that's the reason when you go on your favorite social media site, YouTube or wherever, what do you see? The two biggest influences for women is beauty and fitness. There are thousands and thousands of hair hair videos. But unfortunately, right behind there is little Sarah little Sally Mae, little Annie Mae, little Shay Shay. She got to have her little validation, put her cakes out there, and you know, typical man is going to take note, but typical man is not going to claim her, which is a double standard, don't you think? But if you don't know that you're a diamond, you're going to act like a cubic zirconia. And that's what they want you to do, which perpetuates the cycle. As long as you stay broken, I'll make more money off of you. So that goes back to what I said initially. Why is there a commonality that when it comes to the American story, because the American story, if it was truly written, it would be it would be black. And we got to get rid of all these, and I got to give her props, and because I remember when Raven Simone said, "I'm not a black American. I'm not an African American. I'm an American." She's right. You are an American. And I know some people that are pro-black. There's nothing wrong with being proud of your heritage if you know it. Do you know your story? Do you know who you are? Or are you going to spend the rest of your life imitating and hoping that it will stick? No. Because the moment that you decide to embrace that journey of who you really are, will you be able to see what everybody hoped you wouldn't? How beautiful and blessed you were the whole time. Something to think about, y'all. Because think about it. Do you hear the songs through the years, through history? Buffalo Soldier. Buffalo Soldier was about a black man, a man of what? He was a freed slave. But here's the funny thing about the transatlantic slave, transatlantic slave agreement. Did you know that when they had when uh, when tribes battled each other, they took their women, they took their assets. By that time, if they didn't kill you, you were the slave. You were property. And that's what a lot of people who have been uh, trying to chronicleize their family tree, the only way you're gonna really know the truth is you're gonna have to go and dig in the National Archives, which is found in Washington D.C. And I'm pretty sure there um, you can probably do research online to a certain degree, but you have to and go there and do the research. And I remember uh, I was a little boy. My mom, because my mom's family is from Washington D.C. Born in Washington D.C. Go Redskins. Um, and I remember we spent a week at the National Archives, and I remember my mom doing. She was researching the genealogy, and I remember where from the information she already knew, but the information of looking it up that slavery, post slavery, the plantation owners would chronicleize their slaves with their property, which would be their livestock. they would put them down, and they would use an N for a Negro. There's no such thing as Negro. That's another thing. Um, and that's how they chronicleize it. But guess what? You gonna tell me that people of Native American descent weren't slaves too? You gonna tell me that? Because there were some people that wasn't trying to give up their land. So guess what? Like a thief in the night, they took their stuff and put them in captivity. Now let's go with this real quick. Those who, when the government was having these land seizures, what they still do, we know is regentrification. Um, you gonna tell me these people didn't flee in exile? Where do you think a lot of them went? They went to South America. They went Midwest. They went as far as they could from the scourge, which was the government, because it was about survival. So what I didn't know is with that transatlantic uh, slave agreement, you had some tribes that the people that they captured, they offered those people up, and they were you on a boat. Either you become a slave or you die. Well, the most proud people you're gonna ever come in contact is of a Native American. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about, and some of y'all where your that's where your genetic makeup is. Because some of y'all stubborn like I don't know what. That's that Indian in you. But and it was that's how people were. That's how they colonized um, the Virgin Islands and 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 South America. A lot of those people were Indians, a lot of them. But to the ignorant, dark complected, oh, they black. They lumped them all in one group, and you couldn't talk to them because they're talking in them in their native tongue, same as some that they did get from Africa, because there were some that came from Africa. But here's the kicker, or so they said, because I've asked I've asked different people, and I spoke this on my last video, and I gotta wind this up. A lot of people that I've talked to are under the age of 30, under the age of 40 years old. And the first thing I asked when we built a report was, well, I wanted to know the impact of slavery there. And I got the same answer. I didn't know about slavery until I came to the United States. They couldn't relate to it, even though Senegal has a big monument of it. I'm like, well, how is it that something as prolific as that would not be discussed in their family lineage? Well, I mean, history repeats itself, but the reason why history repeats itself is to see if you got the message or the lesson. That's what, you know. And see, here's something too, millennials. Y'all don't get this, but I peeped this out too. You know why? You know why you're being reared in an environment where everything's carefree and everything's about the party, and they legalized marijuana. First of all, they legalized marijuana because they wanted to finally find a way to legitimize making money off of it, because it's all about them taxes, right? And they wanted to, just like prohibition, same thing, new gimmick, you know. But Also, millennials, you might not realize this. You are the generation that were your your generation is like the generation of the late 50s and 60s. And what was going on back then was free love, a lot of free love and exploration, a lot of drug use, and a lot of civil unrest. That's the same things that are going on right now. 2016. These are the same things going on right now, which is kind of funny because it wasn't like that the last 30 years. But now it is. You know why they did that, right? Because they're hoping that you'll go and burn right through your life so that you'll be the patience in the next 30 years. Because once again, cures don't make money. So they need to make sure that your mind and your body, they ain't worried about your spirit because your spirit's going to be broken. It's debilitated so they can cipher off of it. Think about it. Look at what you're doing compared to what was going on in the 60s. And I guarantee you'll see similarities because it's true. Well, I've said enough, y'all. I would love to get your feedback, especially those that can relate. You know, Native American, you've got a Native American bloodline. You know you do. And here's the thing about it here too. A lot of people don't, because you have those that are full, right? You got one drop. Remember, you had one drop of black blood, you were black. They want to turn around and say, well, you're not full blood. You got to, because the government made an agreement because Native Americans have sovereignty to their tribe, their nations. So there's a nation within a nation. And they also know that there are certain government subsidies in place because of that. That's why they can go to school for free. You get certain loans and grants because of your heritage, your nationality. But those who do not know can't claim. And you know what happens? For those that were aware of that truth, they said, "Oh, I can't claim that. I know what I'll do. I'll make a economic community within a community." That's why you have your Korean towns or your Chinatowns and you know, you know, the Arabs run this and then I ain't gonna tell you about the Jewish. They have everything else because they too are still living a lie because they know that they're not the true Jews. But I ain't gotta tell you that. Just read the Old Testament. It'll tell you everything you need to do. But the key is to continue to grow and learn because the more you learn, the more you're able to see that beautiful person looking back, but for within. Because you're worth it. God's praying for you. You know I am. I see your worth. For that. It helps me discern mine. We're all connected. But the kicker is, when are you going to be connected to you? I bet you when you do, you'll understand what your purpose is by way of your direction and watch it match the size of your heart. Be blessed.